Hello everybody, Mixed Morris here, and today we are going to talk about the rising action in the ravine. Just so you know, you are also going to be completing notes as you watch this video. It is the must-do step 7, the ravine rising action notes, part 1. The notes look like this. On the left I have all the events that happen on each of the pages. In the middle, how Vinny feels, and on the right, how you know. The first one was done as an example, and you're filling in how Vinny feels and how you know for all the rest of the pages. So, you can access a paper copy of this in class, or you can go to Schoology, the unit folder for lesson 2, and click on Must Do Step 7. It'll be when you go to the actual lesson folder. Looks the same for all the pages, I just happen to be on period A. It'll be must do step 7. You can do an online version on Schoology or a paper version in class. Alright, without further ado, the rising action, climbing up the little plot mountain. Our objectives. I will be able to write a complete sentence about how Vinny feels in response to each event, and 2, I will be able to write a sentence explaining how I know Vinny feels this way. So, right now we are on the rising action. It's the sequence of events that leads up to the climax. And to put it in even more specific words, the sequence of events that leads up to the climax, and they can be the events exciting, tense, and complicated. And just so you know, sequence of events, that's just a big fancy word for all the events that happen in order. Like, the man goes to the store, the man buys milk. The man goes to buy cereal, but there's no cereal left in the store, so he decides to just buy what he has and goes home. There's an order to the events. So to break it down, the feelings. Exciting, when energy, fun, and enthusiasm builds up. Tense is when anxiety, worry, or fear builds up. And complicated is when there are so many things building up that it's hard to keep track. There's just so much going on. Lots of complicated. Our focus is what are the events happening in the ravine and how does Vinny feel? So, again, don't forget your notes. I showed you at the start of this video where you find them. The first one has been done for you with the event. I said that Vinny was feeling angry when Joe Boy told him he was going to be the one to find the dead boy. And I knew this because when Joe Boy asks if he's going to cry, he scowls. He also tells Joe Boy to shut up. So clearly he's feeling kind of annoyed. When you scowl, you're angry, you're making an angry face. So that's how I know. And that's what you will be doing for all the rest of the pages. I give you the event and the page number. All you have to do is say how Vinny feels and how you know. So, here we are in the story, in the rising action. Please feel free to rewind, relook, and anything you need to. I'm just going to read straight through, say the page number, and then read the text. Page 1. Vinny slipped and dropped his towel in the mud. He picked it up and tried to brush it off, but instead smeared the mud spot around until the towel resembled something someone's dog had slept on. "Tss," he said. Joe Boy, hiking down just behind him, laughed. "Hey, Vinny, just think. That kid walked where you walking." "Shut up," Vinny said. "You probably stepping right where his foot was." Vinny moved to the edge of the trail, where the ravine fell through a twisted jungle of gnarly. It's in bold, if I look over here. Gnarly, adjective. Something that is gnarly has many knots and bumpy areas on its surface. So it's a twisted jungle of gnarly trees, with a lot of bumps, and underbrush to the stream far below. He could see Starlene and Mo farther ahead, their heads bobbing as they walked, both almost down to the pond where the boy had died. "Hey," Joe Boy went on, "maybe you going to be the one to find his body." "You don't cut it out, Joe Boy. I going, what, cry?" Vinny scowled. Sometimes Joe Boy was a big fat baboose. They slid down the trail. Mud oozed between Vinny's toes. He grabbed at roots and branches to keep from falling. Mo and Starlene were out of sight now, the trail ahead having cut back. Joe Boy said, "You going jump in the water and go down, and your hand is going to touch his face, stuck under the rocks. Ha 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 ha." Vinny winced. He didn't want to be here. It was too soon. Way too soon. 2 weeks in 1 day. He saw a footprint in the mud and stepped around it. The dead boy had jumped and had never come back up. 4 search and rescue divers hunted for 2 days straight and never found him. Not a trace. Gave Vinny the creeps. It didn't make sense. The pond wasn't that big. He wondered why it didn't seem to bother anyone else. Maybe it did, and they just didn't want to say. Butchie was the kid's name. Only 14. 14. 2 weeks and 1 day ago, he was walking down this trail. Now, nobody could find him. The jungle crushed in, reaching over the trail, and Vinny brushed leafy branches aside. The roar of the waterfall got louder, louder. Starlene said it was the goddess that took him, the one that lives in the stone down by the road. She did that every now and then, Starlene said. Took somebody when she got lonely. Took him and kept him. Vinny had heard that legend before, but he'd never believed in it. Now he didn't know what he believed. The body had to be stuck down there, but still, 4 divers and they couldn't find it? Vinny decided he better believe the legend. If he didn't, the goddess might get mad and send him bad luck. Or maybe take him, too. Stop, don't think like that. Come on, Joe-Boy said, nudging Vinny from behind. Hurry it up. Just then Starlene whooped, her voice bouncing around the walls of the ravine. Let's go, Joe-Boy said. They're there already. Moments later, Vinny jumped up onto a large boulder at the edge of the pond. Starlene was swimming out in the brown water. It wasn't murky brown, but clean and clear to a depth of maybe 3 or 4 feet. Because of the waterfall, you had to yell if you wanted to say something. The whole place smelled of mud and ginger and iron. Starlene swam across to the waterfall on the far side of the pond and ducked under it. Then climbed out and edged along the rock wall behind it, moving slowly, like a spider. Above, sun-sparkling stream water spilled over the lip of a 100-foot drop. Mo and Joe-Boy threw their towels onto the rocks and dove into the pond. Vinny watched, his muddy towel hooked around his neck. Reluctantly, he let it fall in. Then dove in after them. The cold mountain water tasted tangy. Was it because the boy's body was down there decomposing? And I see the little 3, so footnote. Decomposing, starting to decay and fall apart. He spit it out. He followed Joe-Boy and Mo to the waterfall and ducked under it. They climbed up onto the rock ledge just as Starlene had done, then spidered their way over to where you could climb to a small ledge about 15 feet up. They took their time because the hand and footholds were slimy with moss. Starlene jumped first. Her shriek echoed off the rocky cliff, then died in the dense green jungle. Mo jumped, then Joe-Boy, then Vinny. The 15-foot ledge was not the problem. It was the one above it, the one you had to work up to, the big one, where you had to take a deadly zigzag trail that climbed up and away from the waterfall, then cut back and forth to a foot-wide ledge, something more like 50 feet up. That was the problem. That was where the boy had jumped from. Joe-Boy and Starlene swam out to the middle of the pond. Mo swam back under the waterfall and climbed once again to the 15-foot ledge. Vinny started to swim out toward Joe-Boy, but stopped when he saw Starlene put her arms around him. She kissed him. They sank under for a long time, then came back up, still kissing. Vinny turned away and swam back over to the other side of the pond, where he'd first gotten in. His mother would kill him if she ever heard about where he'd come. After the boy drowned, or was taken by the goddess, or whatever happened to him, she said never to come to this pond again. Ever. It was off limits. Permanently. But not his dad. He said, "You fall off a horse, you get back on, right? Or else you're going to be scared of it all your life." His mother scoffed and waved him off. "Don't listen to him, Vinny. Listen to me. Don't go there. That pond is haunted," which made his dad laugh. But Vinny promised he'd stay away. But then Starlene and Joe-Boy said, "Come with us anyway. You let your mommy run your life or what?" And Vinny said, "But what if I get caught?" And Joe-Boy said, "So?" Vinny mashed his lips. He was so weak. Couldn't even say no. But if he'd said, "I can't go, my mother won't like it," they would have laughed him right off the island. No, he had to go. No choice. So he'd come along, and so far it was fine. He'd even gone in the water. Everyone was happy. All he had to do now was wait it out and go home and hope his mother never heard about it. When he looked up, Starlene was gone. He glanced around the pond until he spotted her starting up the zigzag trail to the 50-foot ledge. She was moving slowly, hanging on to roots and branches on the upside of the cliff. He couldn't believe she was going there. He wanted to yell, "Hey, Starlene, that's where he died." Make sure you rewind if you need to. Stop at each page. Think about the event in the left column of the table. Think about how Vinny's feeling, and how you know.